Well, thank you for attending the session tonight on are you related to the Siler surname? So generally from many of my other sessions that I do, it's twofold, but this particular one has to do with me having researched all of the records of Pike County. For many of us, we know that Bullock County didn't exist pre-emancipation. And once I was able to finally find all my ancestors to the 1870 census, then it was where do I go from here? So now I got for my enslaved ancestors. So where I'm at now is really all about my enslaved ancestors and really trying to figure out how to find them and then the connections I have with all of you guys. So tonight what I'm going to do is a couple things. I'll do some tips and tricks, probably about 15, 20 minutes of tips and tricks, and then I'll get into the whole Siler conversation and why I really wanted to share that with you guys, the Alabama group.
Okay,
so let me share. So the first thing that I want to share, one, has to do with GEDmatch and the project that I have out there for the Alabama group. And so if you go to free tools in the projects, and you choose on the one with this descendants of all of these many Alabama counties, and then you put in your GEDmatch number, and then here is where you can decide how low of centimorgans you want to go, how high you want to check, how low you want to check. This is basically the default, which is 7, and we're going to sort it by the most recent common ancestor. Who is the closest ancestor that is in this project that you and I would share in common? A couple things to note with GEDmatch is GEDmatch is going to be basically going by the kit that you're going to upload. Many of these, all of these testing platforms have different calculations with our DNA. And so, when you're testing with Ancestry or MyHeritage or 23andMe or any other testing platform, sometimes you might see that you're matching someone and sometimes you might see that you're not. So there's going to be a couple of reasons why you may not see you have a DNA match to someone. So in this particular project for Alabama, we have myself, my daughter, myself, JB, Don is my brother, and you'll see my email addresses associated with any kits that I'm managing. And so I've been able to my brother has a MyHeritage 23andMe. So I realized I needed to put a variety, all of my kits in here so that I don't miss being matched to anyone. My niece is in here, and Willie James Ellington in the Macon County corner. This is my cousin, my oldest cousin. So he's Ellington. So he is in here. James Fitzpatrick. This is my mom's first cousin. He is in here. And so these are pretty much the only matches I have. My brother, my first cousins, and my mom's first cousins. And then after that, the next person related to me is this person named Sylvan Anderson. And what's really cool with this is these are my Alabama people. And they're should be my closest matches. But if you find you're matching with them, then definitely I can speak to you with understanding why are you matching with them and different. So the one thing you want to do is make sure you have your tree added to your profile.
Yeah, I've done that.
Yep. If you don't have a tree in your profile, then I can't compare, you can't compare, and all we can do is look at the common ancestor. But right here where it says MRCA, MRCA, most recent common ancestor, this is what I tell people, this is the money. The money is the most recent common ancestor and being able to see a tree, your pedigree chart. Because if GEDmatch is telling us the person you're related to, you will find a common ancestor at this place on your tree, your common ancestor. So I'll search for Dol's name because I know she's in the group here. So remember, I'm searching at 7 centimorgans. I'm using the default, right? So at 7 centimorgans, I got my high cousins, I have some cousins, and then it just stops.
Okay.
But this is helping you to understand is at 7 centimorgans, these are going to be all of the people that I have. And I see a 19, the lowest, I see a 7. So I'll go to 5. So all I'm going to do is change the threshold, change my centimorgans to 5. To be able to see how many people now do I pull in that may potentially match me. And so now I went down to 5, and at 5, I still don't see Dow's name that's showing up for me, right? And so, okay. So in the beginning, when you're trying to understand how to use GEDmatch and the chromosomes, and all you care about is your matches in the beginning, I didn't care about anything else. I was just looking for trees. Are you matching, and where are you matching? Because sometimes that's as much as we can handle learning until we get comfortable and get better. So once I was able to figure out the matches at 5, I said, okay, let me try 3. Honestly, where I'm at today, I don't even fool with that. I just go to 1. Because, first of all, if you're not related to me, I will not see your name. Doesn't matter the testing platform, doesn't matter any of that. A no match is a no match. But sometimes we don't realize that we need to know where are they, where did they take their test? So this one, as you can see, Dow, your kit is a combined kit, probably with some of your
Right.
multiple things, right?
Mhm.
So we're
Mhm.
getting all of the chromosomes that you've combined from all of your different your DNA that you've added, and it's all combined. So now we get to see that I'm matching you, you know, on more chromosomes, and it looks like the highest chromosome that I'm gonna match you on is just short of 3, 2.7. So
Mhm.
I'll never see we could possibly be any kind of relationship if I don't go low. The other thing to realize is even at 2 centimorgans, which is appears to be about the highest, here's a 2.9. I'm just shy of 3 with you. It still
Mhm.
says that our most recent common ancestor to look at is 6 generations. So that
Okay.
means about my 5th to my 6th ancestor is who I'm going to look at to figure out how you're related to me. So if I take a look at my tree, and we decided to just take a look at our 5th and 6th generation, the first column is myself, is 1, then 2, 3, well, here's 3, here's 4, and here's 5. So anytime you're looking at an ancestry tree, that first full set of columns, that's 5 generations. So somewhere between this Henry Lloyd and my paralegal Cope is any one of these ancestors, or we would extend it and look at our 6th level. So that would basically mean for you, Dow, do you happen to have any Rhodes, Prathers in your
What's the last name?
Rhodes, Rhodes is a possibility.
No.
Okay.
No.
And another possibility is Bird,
BYRD.
BY or BI.
RD. No. And that's on what that's the 5th generation.
Right here, now we're looking at 6. So this is in between the 5th and the 6th generation, right? And I know where you are. So I'm just going to go up the list, but I know where I believe where you are because I know where you physically are in Macon. So, but there will be Bird, there will be Copes, COPE. Grady is another surname. Anderson, absolutely, for that area is a strong possibility that you could be related to me through my Anderson line. And
Mhm.
then Fitzpatrick. So Fitzpatrick's most likely is a strong possibility for you. There's Harper, there's Woods or Wood, and then this is going to be Hooks or Lloyd or Stinson. So, so the thing is, in your tree, you may say, I still don't understand, I still don't know. And if you don't know, and then I don't know, then we just need to do a little bit more research. But GEDmatch is clearly telling us somewhere between the 5th generation and the 6th column generation is where our connection is. We just have to figure it out. So the great thing about GEDmatch is being able to know where to look, number one. And then at some point we could get into this, we could get into the centimorgans and where that matches up. Now, once you finally really are trying to look at your ancestors and enslaved ancestors, anything past 5, generally you're looking at slavery. And what I've shown you here is that you're now being able to see how full I have my tree. So
Mhm.
my research today strongly, without a doubt, is me looking for enslaved relatives and what that work means. So that's one reason why I have done all the work to find my high match. I've done the work to find most of my middle matches. I'm now
Mhm.
having to look for matches using the lower centimorgan level. So,
Mhm.
so if people don't have their trees as full as up to 5 generations, which would be over here, right? If you don't have your tree full over here, then you can't go looking for enslaved ancestors. And that's one thing I try to tell people is, we can't try to find our ancestors if we don't know. We have to have a foundation to build on. Okay.
Right.
So once you have this foundation laid, now it's like I got to start looking at, if we go back to Jed match, I now really have to start paying attention to the what chromosome are you on? What's the what chromosome, what segment start and what segment end? Where do we exactly match as it pertains to the chromosomes and what the DNA is trying to tell us to look? So now comes the next level of research that we might have to do the work for in order to figure out this connection. So one of the tools, and I'll quickly show it in GEDmatch because you don't have to do a lot of hard work in GEDmatch to figure this part out. So now one of the things you can play around with in GEDmatch under the project is, instead of looking at who's my recent ancestor I'm related to, let me look at where's the segment start. And that segment start basically means the chromosome starts here. And if you are matching to me, GEDmatch is going to show, this is called a chromosome painter. It's going to show us all the people that we are related to in this position. I didn't. Sorry about that. Okay, here we go. So this is another way of trying to figure out how we're related to everyone when we're in a group and a project. Okay, so now we're going to see the colors popping in on the right-hand side. And what this basically means, what it's going to do is going to show you based on your chromosome. So this is all chromosome 1. And
Mhm.
all the same color means all of these people are related to me at that same position. At the segment start, all of these people in this project relate to me at the segment start where there's red. So now I can take a look and see, where are all these people? How are we possibly related on this chromosome in the segment position? So I'm going to do a search now for your name, Dow. So
Okay.
on chromosome 1, you are in this group. So that means all of us are matching chromosome 1 in this position. And that's a lot of people. They do say that chromosome 1 is one of the.
Oh yeah, I see. I'm on my mind now. I'm on my computer,
Okay.
and I can see when I put in my profile, my information, because my son is second John. Now I don't know who's that before him. JMS. I don't know who that is.
But the one thing you can do is definitely go to their trees, especially if the tree is there. And that tree is going to help you to be able to see where in their tree, because remember, the markers are always going to display for us, right? So
Mm-hmm.
like this particular here, Norris, even though Norris is 6 generations to me, and then someone different could be, let me see who's the top ones are. Well, she's not a direct cousin to me, but she's 6. It looks like most of you are hitting me at 6 generations, and then the next color begins. So
Yeah,
almost every,
5. Yeah, I
so,
can
but
see it
here's a
here.
4. Here's a 4. So this is a cousin. He's a Jones. So whereas you didn't realize you may have been a descendant of a bird, the DNA is saying you are. We would just really have to figure out who that bird is and how that
Oh,
relationship
okay.
and how
All
that
right.
it matches. So what I did is I chose the wiki, but I could definitely look at my tree. Let me choose somebody different, because we are all matching in the same position of the DNA. So
Start position 1.
once you hit the tree, then you hit pedigree, and that's going to show you the pedigree chart of that person.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And so from here we just count 6 generations in. We don't know if it's maternal, we don't know if it's paternal. We're going to count 6 generations in. So starting with that first person, if they're the first person in the tree, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So even though I don't see 6 generations yet, I can take a look at the last names in this column, because it's about the columns and the ancestor. Why we're having a pedigree chart is pivotal. So here is Hardaway. I tell you what, I don't even know the last name that's Watts, but I know that's Macon County. So the paternal side, I didn't see a lot of surnames that stood out. If I go down to the maternal side, which I was at the bottom, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So basically, somewhere between the name Hardin, um, where's the Watts is a name I have not seen before, and this is going back to 1844. And so what this basically is suggesting strongly, I'll tell you, here's a Montgomery, Hall. Hall is not a name I'm familiar with, but here's a Willis, right? In Macon. So basically, this is saying our ancestor between you, myself, and that person is either going to take us to most likely Virginia, but then we have to just keep looking until we can figure out the source. So this is just a walk of helping the people understand how to use GEDmatch, that common ancestor in a tree, to figure out how we're related. Because this is going back in slavery, not that you don't have all of your enslaved ancestors, but I'll tell you literally, I tell people all the time, DNA don't lie, it verifies. And it's important and so by doing it this way, we're letting the DNA dictate where to look. Okay. So I'm gonna do another search for your name. So on, that's still chromosome 1. All of these are still chromosome 1. So let me see. Now I'm on chromosome 2, and now we're in this turquoise color. So this section that became this new, and this is a short one, so it's not a long group. Again, Bird is popping up. There's your name, J. Ramey. There's your name again. So these are the people that are in this section that we would need to look at. I do know Sugar Lane, and we're basically going to ask ourselves, how are we related at this position of the chromosome?
Okay.
And this is where having a tree makes it very important that we could take a look at. Jay Rice is my niece. You see my name associated with that kit. So that's my niece. And so every color coding are groups of people that are related to each other at that segment position.
Okay.
And so if you have a tree, then and Sylvan is an Anderson, and a Pickett. But she's related to me, and I know I know I'm not Pickett's, but again, that's what we have to keep researching. So this is how we can use the groupings of the chromosomes and the clustering to help us to figure out how we're related to one another. Okay. One great thing you can do, as you know, if you have a project that's just your group, because it's a concentrated group, now it makes it easy where you guys can just hone in on who is exactly related to figure out how. So GEDmatch is one tool that you can use. Another tool that does take a little work is the DNA Painter. And
I use that.
You use DNA Painter?
Yeah, I use DNA paint. I've painted a lot of, I've done a lot of painting of a lot of ancestors.
Okay. So I use it differently because I don't know how you're related to me. So I have your DNA. I can't match your DNA to absolutely anybody. So what would I do? So the way I use the tool is to say, these are all of the cousins I have. This is all of their DNA. And I let DNA Painter align us just like we saw in GEDmatch. But now when I take a look at our profiles, so I'll look at you. Again, this is how come you had so many one chromosome matches, because these are the positions of those chromosome matches you have for me on chromosome 1. Chromosome 2, this is what
Now, this is coming from your DNA painter?
Yes. This is me having painted just your chromosomes. Each person that's a cousin in the project, I took their chromosomes and I added it to DNA Painter, and instead I assign your name to it.
How'd you know it was doll?
Because GEDmatch. I went to GEDmatch and I pulled out dolls. Let me go back to the project.
Okay. I mean, how did you get that cluster?
Let me show you.
Okay.
So basically using a project, in GEDmatch you can say sort by the name, start or end of the segments. So I basically just do the most common recent ancestor view, And
Mm-hmm.
what I do is I go in here and I'll search for Dow's name. So I download this spreadsheet, right? So at the top, you can just download this spreadsheet right here,
Mm-hmm.
CSV, open it up in Excel, and just start copying people's segments in the positions where you need to copy it. And I can show you guys how to do that one by one. So let me find Dow's name again. All right. So basically what I would end up doing, I would have to copy Dow's anything that's Dow's name.
Right.
I copy it, put it in a spreadsheet, and you only need 4 columns of this information to add it to the painter. And so because I have all of the chromosomes I need for her, once I put it in a spreadsheet, like if I download it, you do one person at a time. And one thing when you copy, you got to make sure everything lines up so you don't make any mistakes, because copying sometimes can do that. But if you download it, everything should pretty much be there. And what we're going to copy is the chromosome, the segment start, the segment end, and then this is how we're matching.
Mm-hmm.
And so then you're just going to copy those 4 columns. If you copy more columns, I've seen someone actually copy more and DNA Painter accepted it. It just won't use it. So you're going to copy those. You're going to go to the painter. And then you're just going to say, let me paint. I need to paint this new person. You're going to choose the option that says paint a new match. And you're just going to paste that information in that box. And you need to tell it how low of a chromosome do you want to do. Some people want to do 7. Some people may want to do 5 or 3. This is just what I choose to do because, as I showed a few minutes ago, depending on how low you go, you may miss chromosomes and may miss a match. I don't see Dow until I go to 2 or 1.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and then you're going to hit Save Match. And then you give it some information, whatever you want to give it, but I type the person that's matching me because I don't know how we're related. We're trying to figure this out. So whatever you want to put in there, and as you can see, these are all the cousins that are in the project, and then some that I'm related to. You want to say enter your ancestor's name instead of a couple. I give it you guys. I give it your name. Then you have to tell it, do you want to paint your mother or your father? You really should not do both. Both looks horrible and terrible. And then you give it a color. You can choose any color you want to give it. And then once you hit your color, you just hit save. You can have notes down here, related to me out of rooted from whatever note you want to have that helps you to remember what you need to remember for that person. So once you've entered that data of information, that's how Painter found the segments. So the same thing in GEDmatch where it aligned us on the right-hand side, it gave us all of our matches put in a vertical position. I like this horizontal position. I like being able to see the chromosomes. The father is on the top, paternal, and the bottom is maternal. But all of this, what you're looking at is all of my cousins that I'm trying to figure out the relationships I have with you guys. And so,
wow, that's a lot.
It's a lot, but it's so awesome because instead of me having these big color blocks for ancestors I know and grandparents, I'm making up my whole makeup with just cousins. And I'm at 43% of my makeup just from my little small chromosomes with the cousins.
But you're just showing maternal, right?
Yes.
Okay.
This is just maternal. So what I do is I have a maternal painted tree and a paternal. I have one for each side.
Mm-hmm.
And so once they've been once you've mapped them and, you painted them, and now these are where all these chromosomes that we saw that I copied of Dow, this is what they look like. So after I do that, I click her name and then I say, let me view the match. And so the top part is all of the people that I have already added that match Dow, just like what we saw with GEDmatch. But now these are all of the people that are in my painter that she matches. And then these are the common people at the bottom. But when we hit overlay the matches, this is where it lines them up and it shows us their names. At the top, you'll always see where the match was. And basically at the top, this is the first section that matches me and Dal. From Helen W to me. I've added my kits in here because I just wanted to see them. My other kits, my 23andMe. So let me explain what we're seeing. Because I already did a GEDmatch view of my kit, this is absolutely everyone that's related to me. I can't take this and try to figure out what yours look like, because what I would have to do is I would have to take Dal's kit, go start from the beginning to view all of Dal's matches, and then paint Dal's painted view that way, because I might not see that I'm related to someone here, but Dal may be related to them. So you want to make sure that you're painting your own view so that when we line up, we literally see how we're related to one another. And so I would have to have seen their tree, talk to them, and we have a conversation about these matches. And what I'm clearly doing is this Dennis bird keeps popping out. So whether Dal realizes or not, she gotta be related to a bird. And it's about us figuring out the how. So the next,
it's quite possible because people were separated during slavery. Their last name changed.
Absolutely. And so this is just chromosome 1. There's a bunch of, as you can see, these different groupings. And so these are clusters, the same clusters we saw in GEDmatch, but I love seeing it this way because it's easier on my eyes. One of the things I'll tell you, this Wiggum name, I definitely would want to touch base with you because Dawn Taylor Wright, and I put the last names after it. Oh God, this is scary. There's a Prather, there's a Wright. Norris is a Prather. So these are like names I'm like, wait a minute. So Dal, are you a Prather? And if you went to Ancestry, if any of you on here right now and saw your name other than Dal, so who else is on? Let me see if you're in this view of mine. I see Annette. So let me see if I can see Annette, because I know Annette's everywhere. But that's because that's the Fitzpatrick name, right? So, but Annette, me, and Dal are not clustering, are not grouping. When I view, yes, she is. I typed it wrong. So Annette's in here, AMCL. So you're in here, Annette, with me and Dal. That makes sense.
So that means we're related. I know that I'm related to you, but I'm also related to Dal.
You are. Absolutely.
Damn. Who would have thought? Hey, Dal.
Hey. Hey.
And
yeah, we're related.
And so the Sylvan, you heard me talk about Sylvan, is literally, and what I think Dal is, yeah, definitely. It's not Dal. It's Annette. Annette, you are a Wiggum. You are a Wiggum and a Hannah. Most likely, strongly a Hannah and not a Wiggum, because my cousin that I have in here, Raya Lemons, is Hannah. I know David is part of my Hannah and Wiggum line. Nathan Tipler is a Wiggum line. So Bobby is a Wiggum line. You see Wiggum is right there with Dawn. You guys are Wiggums more than you realized. And when I get to start talking about the Siler name, you're going to see why all of a sudden we didn't realize these names mattered. And
I had no idea. I've never heard of Wiggum in my line.
So you want to, so if you go to Ancestry and search for Hannah.
Yeah.
Wiggum.
What? Hanna?
Hanah. Or Wiggum, Whigham, like it's spelled.
Okay. All right.
And if you pull back matches anywhere, I'm gonna clearly tell you how. I just got to see your tree, and we got to figure out where your ancestors got separated, and you didn't realize that this was your line.
Oh well, I got a couple of dead ends that are strong possibilities. So
Yep. And this is how we can break through those brick walls, using the DNA now and using these tools to line up. Oh, Dal, you have a Jamaica connection. Jay Lit is straight Jamaica.
Yeah, I know. I met that Jamaican. I met him at This one, I don't think it's the same person, but I met him at FTDNA.
Okay. So
Yeah, I met him through a mail line.
and this Jay Litch, I met her. She's Jamaican, and on my father's side, I realized I'm Jamaican, but I think my maternal side could be pulling definitely from England. So she could be England and Jamaican, not just Jamaican, but I know she's one of those two. So the clusterings are suggesting our matches. This is where we have to have a conversation to figure this out. And so that's why I literally love being a painter, because once you set it, you can forget it. And now you can just start looking at people's trees, going to GEDmatch and saying, if Annette is related to me on chromosome 2, then I need, so on chromosome 2, on chromosome 2, Dal is a match to me. She has 2 sections that she's a match to me on chromosome 2. So right now is where I would have gone to DNA Painter, and I'm going to go look for chromosome 2, where that match is lining up, right? So let me go to chromosome 2. And as we can see, here's chromosome 2. Here's a couple of different matches you have to me in there. This is where they're matching, and this is where they're lining up. So I know you know the Burns name because that's coming from your group, Dal. So myself, my niece, Lula Mae Burns is a different group. That's not yours. That's not yours. That's this guy named David Anthony Taylor. David Anthony Taylor is a Fitzpatrick because I've seen his tree. So this is where this is where you're hitting Fitzpatricks.
Well, is it on your maternal or paternal line?
Maternal. All of this is straight maternal because my father was from Jamaica and England. All of this is straight maternal. My grandmother's, my mom's line, my maternal line, not my mom's dad. My mom's dad is Macon too, but this is straight Fitzpatrick. And so this is about figuring out how you would have been a Fitzpatrick in your tree where.
Well, Fitzpatrick is in my tree though.
Okay.
Fitzpatrick. I have Fitzpatricks in my tree.
So that means we just have to figure out where their ancestor hits.
Yeah, so I have Fitzpatrick in my tree. Yes.
Well, I've got an association with Fitzpatrick, but I haven't been able to prove it.
Oh, girl, we done proved it a thousand times.
Just may be the way.
you gotta accept it. It's not, you gotta accept it. So you got, I did the Zoom on Fitzpatrick. So now this is the time where Dal, like if I did a training on Fitzpatrick where I broke down the enslaver of the Fitzpatrick and all the slaves that were associated with that tree, that line, and you watch the video to follow, just like what I'm gonna do with Siler, it's gonna be the same thing. And so, but this is the just the Fitzpatrick, where did we hook up with? Oh, the enslaver. Jake, he may not be in my tree. He should be. He is, because I'm a descendant of their family. So if I go far back, I'm at 1810 in Georgia. So now Green was born in Georgia, but this is the enslaver. And he went all the way back to Virginia.
Benjamin Fitzpatrick, right?
Benjamin Fitzpatrick, yeah.
Right. So Benjamin Fitzpatrick, and he had slaves, and so down here is where my Green is going to come in. There are other slaves, but I can't say that I'm DNA matched to them until I connect with you guys, see how we match, and figure out are we a descendant of the slaves, and now we can say we are DNA related to Fitzpatricks.
When did you do the video on Fitzpatrick? Because I need to go back and look at that.
Yeah, hold on, let me find it real quick.
I mean, what date? I know you posted.
Yeah, I gotta pull it up because that's the best thing that I can do. So, in my channel, and I'll put the channel in the chat.
American.
In my channel, you're gonna see Painter Fitzpatrick right here. Researching the Fitzpatrick surname from Ireland to Virginia to Georgia, Alabama and beyond is the name of it.
Okay.
So I'll make sure you guys get. I have an easier way for you to get to the videos other than going through YouTube, and I'll show you that after. So what I wanted to do real quick was before I started the conversation about the Silers. I'm gonna go back to Ancestry, and we're gonna look at some of the trees because I'll do a tip and trick on how to print out some of these pedigree charts. Because sometimes when you're trying to figure out if you're related to someone and you need to see the pedigree line, if you right click and you hit print after you've expanded the right side of the tree and you hit print, now you'll be able to get a great view of the pedigree chart for that person that includes their when they were born, when they died. And we know it's important to be able to see the dates and the times and locations so we could figure out where our connection is coming from. So this is a great way to be able, and then in GEDmatch, you can always print out the pedigree chart as well. But GEDmatch is telling us where to look at a minimum. Now, we have more than one connection, without a doubt. And you know what, Dal, your kit literally did that. So I'm going to show you with your kit here. So let's think about, we know there's 22 chromosomes, 23, if we decide we want to see the X chromosome. Where did you go that fast? Okay. When I started looking at DNA Painter and I saw the chromosomes, I was like, okay, so this started at chromosome 2, then it went to 3, then it went to 4. It didn't start on chromosome 1, but I said, okay. But then I started trying to figure out how people were related to me, and I started throwing this in a spreadsheet. And once I started looking at all the chromosomes, now you're hitting me on almost every single last one, 12, 13, 14. I don't see 15, 16, 17, 18. I don't see 19 or 20 or 21. Here's 22, but then 1 and 2 started all over again. This strongly suggests, so this will suggest to me, because what I said is, if you're only related to me through one person, why am I getting, it's starting over. So it's starting, okay. And so if it's sorting by our common ancestor, is this suggesting this is more than one person because it's starting over? And repeating itself almost. So I was like, wait a minute, is that one person? And then here's another person. Okay. And so DNA GEDmatch is not going to say this one is 6th generation, but this one is 8. They're only going to tell us one relationship, one common ancestor at a time. They're not going to tell us if it's multiple. So that's when I started looking at DNA Painter, and I started being able to see the clusterings more easily. And I said, this is more than one person because how you're matching with my other cousins. So that's just one thing I wanted you to be able to understand and to see. The second piece is, if your tree is not in GEDmatch, quickly going to your tree, hitting on trees, create and manage, go to your tree that is your primary tree, go to tree settings, make sure you're the primary person at the top and identify who you are in the tree, and then you're going to export the tree. It's as simple as that, getting a tree in the project. So make sure you encourage your people with GEDmatch, please download their tree and add it. Because if they do that, we literally will begin having some major breakthroughs on how we're related to one another using these tips that I'm sharing. And again, some people may not feel their tree is so full, but I may not need their tree full. You don't need their tree full. Annette don't. We've been doing this a long time. All we got to do is see a couple of names and see where they're born and died and cluster that, because we know our areas, to be able to give them some strong hits of how we're related. And now that we can have the tools of using, some of you didn't see, I clustered this with GEDmatch. I could do a segment start or a segment end, but I do segment start. And that's going to be pretty much the same thing we saw with DNA Painter. And you can choose what chromosome level you want to include in that list. That is your choice to do. I personally want to see every chromosome because I don't want to miss out the opportunity of understanding this is where my ancestor, this is where we're matching. And if I started 7, I never would see Doll. If I went to 3, I never would see Doll. I really believe I went to 2, but now we can see the clusterings here. So that's just some tips and tricks real quick. I wanted to be able to go over here and there. We're going to get into the Siler name now. So the Siler name in particular, what was interesting. So as I shared, I researched all of the probate records in Pike County because I was looking for my grandmother's grandparents. And we know Bullock County created and established out of the neighboring counties. And unless we start looking at the records that's in those neighboring counties where our ancestors living, they lived in Macon, they lived in Pike until it became Bullock, or if it became Bullock, did they stay in Pike? Were they in Barber? So there's all of these locations that we needed to research. So I took the time to look at every record that I could find because I was just looking for ancestors, and this was pre-COVID when I started that task. During COVID, I was able to try. Post-COVID, finished it, and then some of you are aware I created a website a year ago. I created a website a year ago, and this was the goal was for me to create reports from the data that I saw. So after I talk about Siler, I will let you see where the repository for this data now sits so that you can actually look for yourself the information that I started recording. So with the Siler name, let's begin. So basically, Solomon Siler was the enslaver that was the records that I was trying to find for him. And so with Solomon Siler, he was born in North Carolina. So if you happen to have any possible Siler connections and any of your ancestors, as I show you, as I go through this presentation, are coming out of North Carolina and you can identify your people in the list, this is why it's important for us to know where they were born and then where they died or who their parents were. So he was born in North Carolina. His father was Philip Matthias Siler, and his mother was Mary Elizabeth Crabtree Siler. She died in 01. He died in 34. If Mary possibly may have had some slaves inherited her by her father or her family, wherever they could have come from, they most likely would have went to her husband, which was Philip, after she died, or her children. So that's one reason why the slaves, when they were gifted or sold to within the family, when these women married and their last names changed, this is where we're seeing the new name come into play. Okay. So this was me trying to do a report to help us to understand about this name. In 1840, Solomon Siler had 112 slaves. For this Alabama area, this was astounding to me because I was like, I had really never saw anyone with this many slaves. Generally, they're like 20, 15, 30 seems to be high. Between 30 and 50 can be high. He had 112 in 1840. But he had 4 plantations. The old place was called Orion, Butler, and the McCullough plantation. So when I started researching his records, and I'm like, wait a minute, he had 4 separate locations. So it would be important to understand where they were. One probably could have been Pike, one could have been in Macon, one could have been in Montgomery. It depends on the location of where they were. But he had four plantations. And on a deed, so this is before he even died, on a deed dated 1830. Seaborn Whatley owed Solomon Siler $1,800. So he basically, to clear his debt, gave Solomon Siler some slaves. So if you possibly search Ancestry or any other testing platform and you pull back any names for Whatley, this is going to basically suggest that those slaves were not Silers or were not the next enslaver that they could have been given to or purchased by. Their origination at a minimum started with Whatley, because this man owed Solomon a debt and he cleared it with his slaves. So anytime in my database, and what I'm going to show you in a minute, anytime you see an identifier in front of their name, I had to find a way of grouping families. Because when it said this person and their children or their husband, I wanted to be able to see the clusters of the families together. So I give them an identifier. And I went all the way to WWXX, XX1, XX2, because basically that was how many slaves Solomon had. I went through the alphabet, then I went through the alphabet twice. And so
Wow.
this is about figuring out how to track these slaves that were families. So here we're seeing there was a Dorcas and her 2 children, Head, who was 3, and Jack, who was 3.5. And here was Head, here is Jack, and this would have been the years they were born. And then there was a Jenny, who was 50 at the time. Was Jenny a parent, a grandparent? We won't know unless, we go into doing any of the DNA clustering. So this
those 2 children are odd ages. I mean, one was 3 and one was
3.5.
No, it could have 3 months.
3 months. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. That's my indicator for 3 months. So yes.
Right.
Thank you. And so this is basically saying, and then Winnie and her 2 children. I don't know. Is there another page? No, there is another page, but that was a whole different. Oh, this is Seaborn. Yep. So there's maybe some continuation of some of the slaves that went, and then so these were via promissory note went from Siler, but so then in 1830, so then there is a deed here that says Solomon Siler was the old owner. He sold slaves to Henry Cason. Do we have any connections to the name Cason? So now,
where'd you find these deeds?
We'll show you in a second, love.
Okay.
You will literally be able to see them for yourself in a second.
Okay.
So if I go to GEDmatch, right?
Yeah.
I want to be able to see the view of all of us, because this is where the rubber meets the road with understanding why you possibly are related to people that you may not realize you're related to, right? So if I go in the project, I know for a fact I have 2 people in the project who are Casons, and one is a husband and one is the wife. And oh my gosh, the Cason husband, he's a Wiggum. James is a Wiggum Hannah. So if you go search for Hannah, hands down, even if you don't see James, if you never see me, I already know how you're related to me. Because 1, I'm tracking these slaves, right? And I see the separation of the slaves. And so he's really not a Cason. He will find out he was a Siler at a minimum. Whoever this record got purchased to or from, it was from Solomon Siler, sold slaves to Henry Cason. So James would need to come back and go tracking up the Siler name, and he most likely would have matches to the name Siler, because that was where he got, where he got sold from. And this is back in 1845. Okay. So then the next deed, I didn't finish the record, so there aren't any names, because I was going to write these wonderful reports, and it just really became so labor intensive trying to share the information with you guys. And this man, he exhausted me. I was mentally exhausted when I tried to pull this document together, because he had a lot of slaves. So
112.
That was in 1830.
Yeah.
So now we have the old owner was Richard Benbow. Richard Benbow sold slaves to Solomon Siler in 1845. Value was $1,500. And now here we have more names, more slaves. So if you went and searched for the name Benbow, would you have any matches in Ancestry or your testing platform? Because if you're having any Benbow matches, could be where this is coming from. And you didn't realize how they related to you, because the name may have gotten changed when they became free to Siler or whoever they got sold to. So this is about tracking these slaves through purchase and sell. And this is just the deeds. And these are all of the people who Benbow sold his slaves to Solomon. And we got to remember, he had 112, right? So he had huge plantations that he needed to support. And he had managers of those plantations. Oh my God, his will was amazing to read, and all of that good stuff. So again, you see the JJ, so Sam and his wife and children, Ransom, Charlotte, Rose. Okay, so that was that year in 1845. And these are all, so the color codings and the boxes, this is me just trying to highlight the separation in the groupings. And the reason why there isn't any continuation, I'll clearly tell you now. I put every name in a spreadsheet. I went A, B, C, D, A1, A2, A3, meaning children. And once I listed every slave and gave them an identifier, then I matched them to when they were recorded in the records. So this is about the separation of the families that went across to other enslavers. How come we're missing how we're related to people? Okay, so this was just 1845. Then in 1847, John Stringer sold slaves to Solomon Siler. Are you related to the name Stringer? Because,
No,
well,
I'm
I'm
not.
saying, well, no.
Well, I don't know.
Go in Ancestry, go in your testing platform, search for the name. No longer assume you know exactly who your matches are, because what I'm trying to highlight is this selling and gifting of slaves back and forth, we got separated. And we've lost track on understanding who our relatives are because of this.
Mm-hmm.
So this is about the suggestion of write these names down, but prayerfully when I get done, the little tool, you're my debut. Tonight is now my debut of the website, and now how you'll be able to utilize the website for your own tool and reference of this stuff. So John Stringer in 47. So here's Mr. Solomon getting him some slaves in 47, 2 years later, Philip and his wife, and 8 children. Here I go, B1, B2, B3, B4, 3, 5, B6, all the way to B8. So this is about tracking the families that they were. And he had plantations. So did he separate the slaves and put them on a different plantation to work here or to get hired somewhere else? Now in 49, Mr. J.T. Parks sold slaves to Solomon Siler. And this is a deed. So we have Martin, who was 21, and Mariah, who was 9. And that was it. So this is me showing you between every 10 years. So between 40 and 49, these were the new slaves that came into the ownership of Solomon Siler. Now we go into 1850. So in 1854, on the 1850 census, he had 46 slaves. So let me talk to you about this epiphany.
Well, and that's in Pike County. Mm-hmm.
Pike, absolutely. But think about this. We already saw in 1830 he had 112 slaves. He done gave some slaves away. He done bought some slaves. Why is he only recording 46 slaves in 1850? And a lot of times what I'm now paying attention to is, though he had 112, they were on separate plantations. Is the overseer or the manager the name that those slaves got recorded under? So even though they were probably owned by Siler, his manager may have been the person that the slaves were recorded under. So we're thinking we're tracking one name when actually the ownership could have been another person, like Mr. Siler here. So these are all the things we definitely want to pay attention to. What was happening with the census versus the buying and the selling of the slaves the previous years before, and doing that comparison. Okay, so when he died in 54, 4 years later, his youngest child was not 21. So the slaves, the probate basically stayed open. His estate stayed open, and the slaves were to be hired out or to work for other slave owners in the area, or to work on other plantations that Solomon Siler had. So they didn't just work on his plantations, they got hired out to whomever needed slaves. In 55, on the Butler plantation, which was amazing to read his record, there were 4 births and 3 deaths. On the old place plantation, there were 5 births and 2 deaths. Orion, 2 births, no deaths. McCullough, 8 births, no deaths. So because the estate was still open, they had to account for all of the slaves dying and the birthing of the slaves. And so all of this was recorded on the probate records. In 56, there were 19 births and 5 deaths. And it said that at that time, the slaves were valued at $61,000. in 1856. Probably 100,000, shy of 1 million from back then. In 57, it's reporting, and this is all his probate records. And I'm just reading, and I'm just writing, and I'm just documenting. 12 slaves, 14 slaves, 15 births every year, what was happening with the births and deaths of the slaves. On the 1856 census, he had 46. There were no deaths among the slaves between the years 50 and 60. Now, when we go to 50 and 60, Frances Delana Colburn, she sold the slave to the estate. I'm not sure if this was Solomon's son. Oh, this was 50, so Solomon was still alive. This is just a deed transaction here. So Solomon was still alive, and that slave name was Dorcas. That slave came from Colburn. Write these names down. Because again, this is how I found all my lost cousins I didn't know about. I went to Ancestry when I saw a new name. Let me search and see if I got Colburn as a list in my name. Literally. And let me see, and I'm going to do that now because I have not played around with Siler. I can't say that I have. But this is what I do when I start seeing these new names. Because you guys don't realize you're related to people in more than all of these different names, right? We're just going to go here. I'm going to start with Siler. I got one. Miss Alyssa. She's on my mother's side. Completely makes sense. And I said, okay, Miss Alyssa, what we got? She's my third cousin. I've seen her, but I didn't dissect her tree and I didn't dissect her information. And it may have been because she didn't give me a decent tree. But I can only use what she's giving me. So I'm going to look at the people in her tree. And then I'm just, okay, I know how she's kidding me. Wait a minute. I searched for Siler. This is interesting. Bostic is my Wigham Hannah line. Jesus. Bostic is Wigham Hannah. She's related to me possibly through this Bostic name, because now that I'm researching my ancestors, I'm paying attention to the last names that they are. I'm paying attention to where they were born, where they were living across their different descendants here. But right now, the goal is to look for the name Siler. And I like this view because I'm trying to see the ancestors, not necessarily just family. And it's in her tree because Ancestry said so. But I don't know where it is. So let me find in tree. Okay. So I don't know where that is. And I don't know why Ancestry told me the story. But so that's basically how I would Colburn. I don't think I've ever seen this name, Colburn. Colburn. Do a search for Colburn. Okay. Now, my brother has a kitten here. So I'm not just going to search me. I'm going to go to my brother. Men pull DNA differently than we do, and many times they pull more matches than we do. But Colburn is not a name I'm familiar with that I can say would make sense to me. But I would let the DNA speak for me instead of me trying to force the DNA. Oh, Jesus, look at that. What did I just say? Parent 2 side, my maternal side. Apparently, this person has Colburn in their tree. Let's take a look. Says this is why and they have a wonderful tree, which is great. And now I just start opening up flyouts and seeing where's the name Colburn. First thing that stands out to me, it says Cherokee. That could be interesting. But they're at the it looks like a European family. Definitely is a European family. Colburn would make sense. This is interesting. What I'm wondering is was this an enslaver that crept in somewhere? So that's Calhoun. There's two things that I can do. If I can find the Colburn name, then we're going to look at the origins to see if they have any African descent.
There's a search thing up there at the top that says, find in tree.
Yeah, that's what I do.
I do too, but I like to see the flyouts because if I can,
right.
I like to be able to just see if it's identified and who's their ancestors before I go to search if I don't. Yeah. I do just this little painstaking task of looking. And, you know, they have a full tree because they know their lines. I'm just shocked. Colburn even, wait, I saw bird. Even though I found my birds, it's just interesting to be able to see what people have in their tree. Nettles, Miller, I'm almost there. I don't see it. Harrington, King, Hodge, Dennis. Okay, find the tree. They have a lot of Colburns, y'all. And they only have 9. So somebody, most likely a female, name changed.
There it is.
And they go back to England. And I don't know which of these people would be the connection, but so at least I can see where this looks like it's a floating person in their tree, unless I just didn't notice it before, right, in the pedigree chart. So this is about, there is a Colburn in this person tree. So I'm going to go to their profile, and then I'm going to look at origins. I definitely have England on maternal and paternal. And remember, we found this from my brother's match, not my match. So under there, I'm going to look at the origins, and I just want to see, there is no Nigeria. There's no African-American descent. So this is coming from Scotland. That's paternal, so that's not the one. And then he matches my brother on my maternal side, my mom's side, so my grandmother. It could be my mom's dad. That's one thing I have to stop doing. I always want to force everybody to match my grandmother because I know that line strongly. The Fitzpatrick is on my mom's dad. And I definitely need to make sure I can match my mom's father and not just her mother. So that's my new task. But basically, the Netherlands is maternal. Germanic Europe is maternal. So this is probably an interesting connect where it could be pulling it from my ancestry that goes far back. So someone had sex with my family member, and that's what basically that means. So this was this was an exercise to tell you why we got to stop assuming we know who's in our tree and our tree is solid. We got to let the DNA and the research of the records tell us where to look. So maybe Dorcas is some kind of kin. Dorcas could have married into my other lines, which could make sense why she could be related to me and I didn't realize, right? She probably could have gotten sold again later. Offhand, I kind of think I remember the name Dorcas, but I'd have to look into that. Cooper. Mr. Cooper sold slaves before Solomon died to Solomon. Am I related to Coopers in the Alabama area? Edmund, Sam. Then there was a whole nother deed of Mr. Kirksey sold slaves to Mr. Solomon before he died. I've seen Bina. Bina, Judia, Bob, Mary, Sullivan, Henry, Lavinia.
Where are you looking at those names?
In this column.
Oh, okay. All right.
Because so basically and I'll show you my database. I'll show you how you'll be able to look at this as well. It's a work in progress, but my prayer is that it's going to give you some breakthroughs and we'll work together on these things. But so this was a D-Day. The format you see here is the format you're going to see later on the website. I give every owner their own individual number. And then the last name gets a family group ID. Oh man, that was a good thing I put it in my website. Because the one ID should be the same across everybody, whatever that number is. The name Siler gets assigned one family group number. So what that means is, let's say, for instance, let's say your family member was Julia. You found Julia on the 1870 census, but Julia was a Siler. So now you're going to search for everything Siler on my website, and that'll show you. And then now all of a sudden you see the name Kirksey. And that's going to suggest to you that Julia was never a Siler. She was originated, at least at this time, as a Kirksey. Now you're going to jump to the Kirksey name and go search for the name Kirksey or variations of the spelling to see, do you have any DNA matches?
Mm-hmm.
I always start with the testing platforms first to see, does anyone pull back like I did earlier? Because the solid match is great. And from the solid match, I build the smaller centimorgan matches from a solid.
Girl, you're sure your brain ain't scrambled? I'm sure it must be. But go ahead. I'm following.
Long as you follow, and I'll let you see this in action. But I mean, literally,
but it's very well organized. I have to give you credit. It's very well
no
organized.
Kidding. No kidding.
I mean, very organized.
After I shut down trying to transcribe after solid. This was some work. Here we go. On 1861, the list of the slaves were recorded in the settlements. There were 10 births. There were 259 slaves recorded. I was like, I had never seen anyone in our area, Alabama area, with this many slaves. So 65 slaves were allocated to each of the children. So I think that was Lorena, Laurentina, Mary A. Quintus, their mother Jane Siler was their guardian because they were children. So let's remember, he died in 54. This is now 8 years later. They're still children. So they're keeping the estate open, getting income from the estate so that the family can go, the kids can go to school, continue their livelihood until they come of age. Then they'll make a decision what to do with the slaves. But this is now taking them up until 62, just before emancipation.
I had to step away, but did you say where you had found these settlement papers?
Yes, ma'am. I will show you in a second.
Okay, you getting there.
I will show you in a second, yes. So this is the report that I was trying to create for you guys out of everything that I had transcribed and I had recorded. And now these are all of the surnames. When I put that post up on the page when I created the event, that's where all of these names came from. The buying, the selling, the gifting of all of the slaves associated with Siler and just from this point in time up until his death and anything after that. Spier, Stringer. I saw this name Spier, and I have someone, and so Kathy knows possibly Spier. Spier last name, Kathy, is associated with Jerome Spier in the 272 project, right? The Jesuits project. I called Jerome. I said, Jerome, can you see if you have any Spiers in Alabama? He said, yeah. He don't understand his Alabama connection.
Oh.
And I said,
calm down.
You understand what I mean? So I literally was like, okay.
So you're going to be teaching the expert about his own family. Go on, girl. Girl.
It's a beautiful thing to be able to finally have the tools at our disposal. The records have been transcribed. Come on, y'all. We ain't got to go looking, and now things are at our disposal. Let's utilize them and make this available. So on that note, I'm now going to share with you sorry, I chose the wrong option. I'm going to share with you what the website, so the Shan project used to be called the Slave Transcription Project, STP, back in the day. When I first came up with this idea or conception, it was help me transcribe the records in Alabama. So we went through the process of gathering everything that had to do with slavery and the association of slavery in Alabama. So when I said to you, I transcribed Pike County, literally transcribed Pike County. But now, how do we use those records to be able to link to 1870 census and to be able to find the data? And this is the presentation of the data to you. So basically on the homepage, it's simple. I've completely transcribed Pike. My goal was to go to Macon next, but I was like, this is going to take me forever. And it still is a goal. Montgomery, I want all of these counties transcribed, but now I done jumped to Jefferson, Georgia, and now I'm over here in Frederick, Maryland. Because one thing, Alabama, I'll tell you guys, our ancestors did not originate in Alabama. None of our ancestors originated in any state that we're researching. You could be living in Maryland your whole life. For 200 years, your family was in Maryland. Well, you know what? They were in one county of Maryland, but they were taken from another county of Maryland. And so now my speak is, our names are just like our locations. They're not ours, and we have no identity to one. We really need to start allowing the records and the research tell us where our family originated from, and use the DNA to guide and order the path. Okay, so faces are turned away from me because people are like, she's talking too much. Show me the website. So, okay. So basically, what's happening is I do have resources over here. The website always had these resources that I felt were helpful resources, newspapers associated with Alabama, census locations, plantations that are helpful for us to want to understand and to know. So I kept the resources because it's still very pertinent information that is going to be helpful. The goal is that this is not going to only live for Alabama, it's going to live for where our families came from, and that it will become a repository of data. So under the, I'm going to have to tell you, submit your ancestor. I will show you what that looks like. But if you found your ancestor on the 1870 census, I'm going to tell you what to look. Tell me who they are so I can identify. And if you found records for them, tell me where those records are so that they can be a part of this project. And now we can cluster ourselves with each other. You've already done the work. It's about working with me so that we can put it in one repository place. Training videos. My website, every video that I now have, I put on my website. So you do not have to go looking for a video now. So if you just want to go to my website and now you see Fitzpatrick is down here, Bird is up here, Williamsburg in South Carolina is over here, how to use DNA Painter, understanding why I say we could do 7 chromosomes. All of the videos are on my website. It's just a measure of you clicking and you can literally watch from the page. And you don't now have to go to YouTube to do that. So that's one thing I wanted to be able to share with you, that all of the information that pertains to anything I've done, I put on my website. Now, this is the steps of the research tools. This is just the tips and tricks that I think when it pertains to researching DNA, understanding what is involved in researching slave records and our enslaved ancestors. I'm trying to put that here. So now here is the using the website. Okay. So the using the website right here is telling you the steps that you have to take in order to use my website clearly. You want to look on the 1870 census on my website, find your ancestor. After you find your ancestor, record their number. Next, you're going to go to the slave master section, and you're going to look for the last name of the slaveholder that was the slave master and as of 1870. Note that person's number. You can note the family group. This is just that helpful tidbit. Please build your tree to the 1870 census as best you can. Researching the deeds, probates and estate records. So basically, once you have the identifiers, you're basically going to go to 1870. And I'm going to use Siler as an example, and then I could do Fitzpatrick as another example. So the pulsating is telling you there are 80 right now today, 82,000 census records of the counties I've transcribed from Alabama. I have done Barber, Bullock, Butler, Coffee, some of Coffee, not a lot, some of Butler, Pike and Macon. All of those census records are now on my website. Basically, if I just want, I could do it one of two ways. I could filter and just type Siler. The website is going to filter out every name if you just type one name. So out of 81,000 records, this is showing you 50 of 65. And I'll bump that up to about 100 tonight. Because I want you to be able, so these are all of the Silers that were on the 1870 census. So if they actually, and this is going to be black and white, of course, So, we can sort these out. I think what's amazing, I think the Silers were probably in Pike, not, hold up, this is Pike. So see how on the left-hand side, here's the county. Here's 2 for Bullock, 1 for Macon, the rest were. So at a minimum, this is helping us to figure out the family line. So I'm gonna go with the family that can make sense for you. I'm gonna use my own family because that way I can show you how. So I'll do Fitzpatrick. Forget that. I'll do Fitzpatrick. And what I'll do here is I'm gonna do surname. Oh, hold on. Let me clear this list so we can see all. The only thing I'm gonna literally tell you is just be patient with the website. There's 80,000 records. It took me a minute to make sure that all of this loads. And so that's why the pulsating is there, because you'll come here and it'll feel like it's gonna crash. I didn't want it to crash. So now I'm just gonna go to Fitzpatrick. And let's say I know that my Fitzpatrick married a Wood, did. So now I can do more than one name. I don't have to just only see one name. I can do more than one. So I'm going to, in the drop down, and see how these are spelled differently. There's a wig. Wiggum is different. Wiggum, Wiggum. This is the census takers, right? And we know that there is transcription errors. So now we can go and find a name and choose more than one name. There's Wheeler. There's Wheelers. So I'm giving you the ability to choose more than one name because we might need to see more than one name for our research purposes. So now I'm looking at all of the Fitzpatricks, and here Matthew Station, all of the Fitzpatricks that were in Bullock. And there are 448 names in this database that are Fitzpatricks. They are white, they are black, they are mulatto. So now that I've gotten Wood, the surname, maybe I want to see the mulatto and the black names. Maybe I don't want to see all the others. I'm trying to find my family. So now there's 315 people. And once we identify our family, and matter of fact, let me see if I can play. I'm gonna force my web green. Look at me. Okay. So what I basically am able to do, I'm able to on my website choose what names I want to see. I could choose the race I want to see. I could probably choose age or birthplace, but then I use the filter to just give me the name I'm looking for. That name I'm looking for was Green Fitzpatrick, who I showed earlier. This is Green's identifier right there, 46432. I copy it, I paste it. I now know that the person I'm researching is Green Fitzpatrick, and his identifier is 46432. So he's a 46,000 person in the database. And now that I have a name, I'm going to go here, and now potentially I want to look at the enslaver, the slaveholders, who were all of the Fitzpatricks, because I need to understand who were the players. So now I'm going to come here and I'm going to look for a Fitzpatrick. And there was more than one. There was a Fitzpatrick that he had a son, he had a junior, he had a senior. And now we're able to absolutely choose more than one person. You know what? I'm going to see if I can select more than one selection at a time. Maybe not. No, I can't, because it's a drop down. I'm going to suggest to the developer he fix that. We might need to choose more than one selection at a time. Okay, that's everybody. This is all of the Fitzpatricks that's in the database. And so what's great about what I wanted you to understand with using the website. So Mary B. Harwell, Annette knows that name very well, because Mary B. and her sister, Mary A.R., the mama, and then Sarah, all of them were the last people that were in Pike who had slaves before emancipation. They were the children and the mother. What was his name?
They were in Macon. They were in Macon.
In Macon, thank you. I thought it wasn't Constantine Elam. Mary's husband was Elam, just because I know the information, right? Elam had died, and he had died in 41. So this lets you be able to see the players that you need to track. But this is showing you all the slave masters. You now can see how to find the family group or the slaveholder's last name. One thing that is really cool is just look for the family group. Because what that's going to tell you is if the women married someone, you'll catch their information. You'll catch any records or deeds associated with the family that's based on that name. So now if I just put that family ID over there in the search box, I'm going to see anyone associated with the name Fitzpatrick. These are the deeds you were asking me about. Archibald Graves, he was the old slave master. He sold slaves to Joseph Fitzpatrick. Are you related to Graves? Under the Fitzpatrick name, right? So these are the deeds that I was able to find associated with the name Fitzpatrick. The buying, the selling, the gifting. Somewhere I believe there should have been, and on the right-hand side is the arrow where you can mouse over and see any notes that I had written in here to help you to understand what was said. So this, a gift from Joseph to his sister Elizabeth. And if I go backwards, this is showing us all of the gifts from Joseph right here. Early Frank, Nellis, Aggie, all of them. And then pay attention to the dates. So this is helping us to be able to understand and to see what was going on with the transaction before these people died. And what I searched for was the family group ID. So I don't have to play around with an individual name because we need to know the collectiveness of that. These are just deeds. The next thing is going to be the probates and wills. And if I type that family group in here under probates and wills, these are the people when they die. And on the right-hand side is when you're going to be able to start seeing who were the identifiable slaves based on when those people died. And any notes. So Anne and her 3 children went to Fanny right there. And some went to Clay, Elizabeth Clay. So Elizabeth's last name became Clay. Many times with the women, you'll see I have more than one identifier. That's because Celia Ann was a Baldwin. She married a Fitzpatrick. Are the names under Baldwin. So now I'm giving you the identifier for her names associated with her. So now you'll want to research both of these family group names, family IDs, to pull back anything associated with that. And so this is showing you the deeds, showing you the probates for them. But then the last column, the last option in that drop down is showing you the actual records where this data came from. You can copy and paste and have a ball. Fortunately, it's not a hyperlink. I need to work with the developer to see if I can make a set column a hyperlink. But you can copy and then you can paste. But this is where the resources came from, those records. For anything of that name. And so I'm definitely looking for feedback from you guys because 98% of everything in here is Alabama. Pike, I have not transcribed all of the counties as I shared, but the data that I took the time to research, now I'm not going to do no reports. Now I'm giving you the data to look for yourself. If you really want to find your enslaved ancestors, this is the work that has to be done, is finding them on records and the recording of those records. And my prayer is to be able to provide the repository of that information. So this right here, I'm gonna move this to the beginning. Slaves found. These are all of the slaves who have been found from former slaves, the 1870 census. And we've worked to identify. So if I look for that record under a deed or under a probate, I will find that person listed as a slave for Henry McGowan. I mean, his name, he was Henry at the time in the probate record associated with him. But we have found his record in the data through the database linking him. This is how I was able to find my ancestor, Ann Lloyd. She married Jackson Lloyd, but she was literally a slave of the Stensons, but she was formerly a slave of the Betzels, And before she was a slave of the Betzels, she was given to the Foremans. So that's why on here there's a name Foreman, Barry Foreman. I was able to figure out Foreman is also related to me because the slaves were gifted to one name. He was an attorney. Foreman is an attorney that was in the Pike Bullock area. And then they became, the Stinsons purchased the slaves from Foreman. So I was originally thinking, I'm not even a Stinson. I'm not a Foreman. I guess I'm a Betzel. I did not believe I was related to anyone that was Stinson. I thought my family was a separate set of slaves until the DNA lined itself up enough to help me to understand I am actually a descendant under McCullough Stinson. The black family, that anyone that was Stinsons, I am a relation to them, and primarily because the slaves were gifted to that family. I'll quickly show you that, and then any questions you guys might ask. But let me think. It's under a deed. It was amazing to be able to, and Emily and I went round and round and round, fighting ourselves as to whether Jason Stinson, who married, matter of fact, that's Sulu over there, Dow. That's that Sulu line. Jason Stinson marrying Amanda. And I'm like, that's not my line. I don't got to worry about it. So I'm letting Emily have all the conversations with the Jason Stinsons, the Stinsons that's over in Butler. So the reason why there's a small snippet of Butlers in here under the census is because over here, if I go back by date, Brown, I now really got to pay attention to. McCullough sold a set of family, Martin, Julia, a child not named, Zadok, Alexander, Allen, and Amanda. Sold this family to Thomas Brown. I have not today taken the time to look for Browns and Montgomery, look in their tree, see if there's any movement that went to Butler or Mississippi. But Brown is a name I need to pay attention to because those slaves were sold. I believe Allen took the name Stinson. Zadok definitely took the name Stinson. So they did not keep the name Brown, but it did any of the others. We have children here. So paying attention to the buying and selling, I'm trying to find the deed that was early, okay. When McCullough Stinson died, the enslaver, when he died, what he did is I'm gonna show you the probate record for that, just to get you to understand how these records are vital, and interpreting the records being vital, and then how could I possibly relate it to someone when the record isn't making sense, but the DNA is forcing us to respect it and pay it some attention. So when McCullough died, where are you, McCullough? McCullough here. What he did, I'm under probate, in 1848, he gifted his daughter, who, long story short, if I can't find it, he gifted his daughter 2 slaves or a girl slave, and she married Presley. And he took his wife to Butler. And that's how the Stinsons are related to the Presleys and Butler. Because McCullough sent his slaves early on to his daughter, but when he died, they had to account for those slaves as property. So even though he sent the slaves in early 1800 because she had married a Presley, matter of fact, on my website, I do have a group in here under the slave master section called family. Because you got to know their family better than we know our own. And so, so this basically, oh, I need to move that because it's not going to make any sense to you guys. But this is all of his children here. Jason Stinson, his wife, and I give them identifiers in a tree, basically just trying to help me to understand their relationship to a primary slaveholder. But these are all of the people. But in here, he had a daughter. Where is Miss Presley? She literally married a Presley, and he had to allocate for those slaves that went to Butler. So in 1848, for his probate, he said, I record the 2 slaves that went to my daughter in like 1820. And then some slaves went to a son, I believe, in that time frame. All it said was boy or all it said was girl. So anyway, all right. Questions, feedback.
I still want to know where you are interpreting these deeds and these probate records. Are you finding these online, or are you actually going somewhere to a courthouse?
They're right there. Literally, they're right there.
Okay, so they're from different websites.
These are Family Search.
Okay, Family Search. Family Search is what. Okay.
Yeah, Family Search or Ancestry.
Okay.
And sometimes, Ancestry has the same record that's on Family Search.
Right.
But I just put them both. So basically,
Right.
I copy that.
So you literally are transcribing directly from what you see on these different websites, right?
Actual record.
Okay.
Absolutely. So basically what you're looking at is if I went to the record. Oh God, I didn't pay attention to the page.
Including probates?
Yes, ma'am.
Mm-hmm.
I did estate, I did probate. And then if I bought some books, I added whatever I found in books. So on page 68 to 70 or 51 to 52, because we know the numbers are either, I'm going to show you the first one. The numbers are either the page number, actual page number that's on the page, or the source that we're looking at, right?
Right.
Okay. So now if I type 68, probably the other number. Hold on. And then I'm going to change the view. Ain't nobody got time for straining. All right. So it's either going to be 68 or it's going to be 51. So it might be 51 because I don't think that's the actual page. 51. Came into Daniel Simmons, Isaac Samuel Simmons, instrument, James Hind. Okay, that's not it. The bottom. Formal. Bequeath to my beloved son, Neil. That's not it. So what's the record at the top? 68. So this is the record of 68. So this is 68 to 70, 69. Oh, what was the name? McCoy. I'm sitting up here looking for the wrong name. So, so basically I'm looking for John McCoy's record. And this definitely should be McCoy. So, yeah.
Did you find records? I mean, I thought a lot of the 1870 census for Macon County was either missing or destroyed. Did you make note of that?
No, I found it. I
you
found
did
it.
Find it.
I'll show you.
Okay.
I'll go to Family Search. What was amazing about Macon County was because Macon was Indian territory, you see the selling of all the land. And so it was like, how much of this do I got to read? I kept looking for the name slave, right? And so
right.
I literally looked at every page. I went page by page by page, recorded every slave, identified what page is it on. So it was 68 here, but 53 up there.
Girl, I hope you're getting a salary.
I'm not.
Well,
I'm looking for my ancestors.
You need to go find a GoFundMe page or something. You're very generous to share all this information. Thank you.
Absolutely. Literally, for the love of my grandmother is why I'm doing this. No one wants to believe my methodology works, my methods work, and that I'm helping us to find each other. But they don't understand the depth of the knowledge of records that I have spent time transcribing and recording. This is not new to me. I've been doing this for years. So at the end of the day, I'm going to do what I got to do to help us. And I'm going to say this because in all truth is what it is. It's a ministry to me, for me. For me, God wants us to, the ancestors want us to find them, want to figure this out. It is my prayer that this website is not complicated for y'all. Mind you, I'm using, and I made this myself. So thank God I have the talents to be able to build that myself where I don't have to go pay people to do all of this, or yeah, it would be financially intensive.
Mhm.
But I now am at a place where I want to transcribe other records because our family did not originate in Alabama, didn't originate in Georgia. And in order
No.
to find the other ancestors we need to find, these records need to be transcribed. And what I want to be able to do is to use the census and the records to help us to link our families and to find them.
Mhm.
So
It's just a lot of information that you have there. I mean, it's very well organized. I mean, have a lot of admiration for what you have done so far.
thank you.
I think it's very well put together. I just got to understand. I got to go back to your website and look through everything.
Yeah. And take the time again. Note, like, what last names do you have, Dow?
I have Harris, Bryant, Seagrass, Fitzpatrick, Webb, um, Tannehill. That's my white ancestors. I found them. Tannehill. I found all of them. I went back all the way to Ireland, back to the 1500s with them.
The Tannehills.
I
Okay.
found them. Now there is some whites on my grandmother's side, which I am matching a lot of whites on her side, and I have no idea how they fit in.
Right. Right.
I'm trying. That's my next step, is try to find out how they fit in.
Yeah, I got a couple of mystery lines as well.
So one thing we definitely need to do, because we're closest out of anyone I'm researching, I'm closest to the Alabama connection. And instead of us being stuck with these lines, number one, between DNA Painter, literally, and between the research that I found with the lines that I know, I at least can help you break through the lines I know. The Fitzpatrick line, and I'm gonna tell you right now, Annette, what we have to do is we already know the family line. We know the story. The we have to use the DNA to point us to where that matches, and then we just have to accept it. And I'm not saying the records don't exist, because the records are there. But after we do that, then that's a wrap. I don't focus on Fitzpatrick no more until and actually I've taken Fitzpatrick all the way to the Europeans. I'm done. I'm over Fitzpatrick right now.
Right.
What I'm trying to do is connect my cousins that need that connection, because there's more story, right?
Right.
So I got Lowly Green. I don't have everybody else, and I want everybody else. So the DNA. So what I can do is, we want to set a time that works for us. Come together and let's just look at these trees. Let's figure this DNA out. Let's figure these stories out between the records. And, I definitely have the records. You guys have some records. We can at least put some of these babies to bed. But what I wanted to show you was about Macon. And I'm going to go back to where you want to find it is the beginning. It's not transcribed. And so there's one of two ways you're going to find it. So the way that I was doing in COVID, pre-COVID, I found a link and I was banging on that link, but then someone helped me to figure out where the link exists in Family Search. So if you go to search and you choose images, and you just take Macon, whatever location you want to look for, that's where you're going to find anything that's for that state. You could come in, you could choose a different county. I could click, it says Tuskegee if I only wanted Tuskegee over there on the right. But this is where those records were existing. And then you can filter it out by a time frame. So I know I don't want to look at nothing I'm going to show y'all. That's the thing. I definitely got to show y'all that tonight. 1875. I'm going to go as far as 1875. And I'll show you why in 1 second. So now I know I only have probate records. And so now there's a total of, there's 5 pages. And I literally took number 1, page by page by page by page. There's 525 pages. I could get through 500 pages in about 3 days. Every page looking for slaves. That was how I transcribed Pike. Every day until I found every slave. But then I created a database and recorded them in the database. I don't need marriage records. personally don't care. So I could come over here and I could say enslavement I want, and I'm building the list. So property, I think I chose legal. Show all 6. What have I chosen? Deeds, land, don't care about land. I want deeds. See how I'm filtering out what I really want over here? I'll choose property because slaves were considered property in that time period. And now I'm going to update it. And that's going to filter out the marriage records that today I don't need to see. I only want to see anything that's pertaining to enslavement. This is probably the Freedmen Bureau because I see the hospital records.
Mm-hmm.
And I did find a family in Macon Hospital. But Annette, to your point, this is where those records are.
Okay,
And then these are the books
got it.
that I recorded as the books and the pages. So all of that stuff. And so the goal was I going to do this by myself? And as time as I will, if, but I would rather you guys tell me, I found my ancestor from 1870. Here is the book I found it in. Then on 1870, I'm going to record that person in the database. And so now the goal is that we'll be able to feed this database and be able to find the slaves
Mm-hmm.
that we collectively have found. Collectively. If you guys tell me what you got, then I can match that to what we have. And now we can grow and help people that are connecting from 1870 and may have barriers.
Sounds good.
Okay. The other thing I did want to show you was the Alabama the Alabama genealogical website. So I contacted them. I have become a member. And one thing that they have in their website, it was very informational. I am now going to volunteer once I'm done. My website is up now. I'm transcribing stuff for other areas that pertains to our family. But I did share with them I'm going because I want people to respect what I do. But they have this project called Loose Lease Project. What the Loose Lease Project is, and I want to make sure you are clearly understanding where they're coming from. What they've done is they've taken the family search records, but they've taken what's called loose leaf. Just pieces of papers, I guess, not the probate, not the estates, just loose pages, right? And so if we go to Pike, maybe Pike has a decent list. So somewhere in here, there's some recording of, so what they said that they were going to do is, let's say, for instance, I look at 1843, Anne Benbow. Matter of fact, Anne Benbow is in my database. Clearly, Anne, Catherine, all of the Benbows that you see right here are literally in my database, on my website. So, so what I would try to understand is, have I transcribed this record, which I know I haven't, but it's loose leaf. So let's see what they got, right? So if we look at Anne Benbow, there's 29 pages. Now, this is what they did. They looked at the cover page. We don't see no slaves. They left. They don't go in the pages. They don't go look for slaves listed. Hold the phone and wait a minute. Look at that.
There's a bunch. There's some.
I don't. And they're not trying to do this. They literally said if it's not on the cover page, they're not going to ask their volunteers to go inside and look at it. This was 3 pages in. Okay. So their loose leaf project is trying to look at the cover page, and if they see slaves, they record the names. So I'm going to go look for Anne Benbow over here. Because I know I literally transcribed her record. She was one of my earlier ones. I don't know the Benbows from a can of paint, but so here are all the Benbows that I was able to find and transcribe. There's Anne. She died 1856. She married, so her maiden name was Platt. Then she married a Benbow. Anyone researching her would need to know to pay attention to Platt. And that's one reason why I did it like this. So if I go looking for the Benbows under, that's probably a probate record, that's a probate record. Let me see what record that was. Richard Benbow, deceased. This is her husband. It's not even Anne. It's her husband. And that's what can definitely be confusing about these records. They'll have one name on the cover. And then when you read that record, it's a estate of Richard Benbow.
Was she the administrator of the estate?
No, I think so. But if I come here, matter of fact, when I look at the website, it said Ann Benbow. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna contact them. I'm in conversation with them about their loose leaf project, and it's just really a gentle conversation I would like to have to help them to understand. I know what your heart is trying to do, but it's not helpful because
Mhm.
the records are not black and white. And that's the only way I can say it. They're not black.
More than you know. So I actually did a genealogical trip to Tuskegee in the Macon County Courthouse. I actually spent a day there.
That's a trip.
And it was a beautiful, not beautiful, it was a cute little, very small courthouse. And I asked the question, hours into it, I said, do you have separate books for colored versus white? And they assured me that no, they do not.
Ah,
They do. They absolutely do. I found them. I took pictures of them. I didn't, I wasn't all nasty about it, but when I left, I did let them know, well, just so you know, you actually do have separate records for colored and for whites in the back. And
mhm.
so it depends on, as you all know, who you talk to as to what they know. And it does depend on their mental desire to help.
Well, here's another secret you might like to know. Do you know about the Macon County Annex for probate, which is across the street? Okay,
No.
so they've got ancient records in there that were stored during either a flood or something. They had been locked up in a truck for years. And they finally opened that truck and they dumped those records over across the street in what they call the probate annex. Most of the probate staff don't even know it exists.
Okay.
There are a couple of people that now some of that one of the contact people who in Tuskegee who does know about that annex is Lonnie Potts. Who is the archivist for Tuskegee Institute.
Okay.
She's aware of the archives. I haven't been down there in years, so I don't know. There was a process to try to get those records copied and transcribed, and I think that many of them were sent to Montgomery, but last time I was down there, which is about 5 years ago, there's just still stacks and stacks of old records and stuff that has been from chancery records and all kinds of other land records stuff, old newspapers. It's
oh wow,
it's a treasure trove, but it's also a nightmare. So I don't. Just next time you're in Tuskegee, you might ask somebody about going over to the ARC. It's in the same office as the land where they keep the land records. Which is across from the probate office.
I know that within the next 2 years max, I definitely want to go back. But now that I will be able to go back with a focused research initiative. We're first doing it, we're just winging it, not knowing what we're looking for. But I definitely want you guys to know that. So on their website, they have the Bullock County loose leaf. Why would I look there? It's just Bullock County. No. So first of all, the top part basically are slave names.
I'm sorry to interrupt. What is this source again? The Alabama what?
GenSoc. Alabama Genealogical Society's website.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
GenSoc. So Bullock County, and then every slave gets a line. What's the name associated to that slave, So me personally, I don't know that that's helpful unless I know I'm looking for the name Bill for Bullock. But okay, this is for you, Kathy. Thank you for being here tonight.
Pleasure to be here.
Because I did not,
girl. I did see some.
Oh, hold on, wait a minute. I see the name Hooten. So yeah, I definitely got to come back here. Hooten is my line as well. And I know they're coming out of Macon.
Names.
Hooten and Wooten, both of those names. But did I look at the top? Maybe I just looked at that. Maybe it was Abram. I don't know. I hope this is it. It's not it, but it is a record that is going to prove this is not for you, but this is a record that shows us in 1862, these probate records remained open until post emancipation.
Uh-huh. Wow.
And we see slaves in Bullock County
Wow.
identified on records under this name, Youngblood. So I know that I have Youngblood in my database, but it's a measure of were these names that linger post. And I never went back to Bullock County. I stayed in Pike until about 1867, and then I said, I'm out. There's no more records of slaves about in this time, completely forgetting the fact that some of these had young children. And so that's why these estates remained open, and this remained open until 70.
May I ask a favor? The previous page that had the type names, could I just get the URL of that where you were?
Well, where you find it is if you go to the Alabama Gen website. Hold on. Where did it open from? Yeah, that website don't stay consistent. It doesn't stay consistent. I can't hit the back button. So hold on. It's Algen Sock. And on the left-hand side, you're just going to choose loose leaf.
Gen Sock.
Alabama Genealogical Society, Algen Sock.
And that's .org.
Yep, .org. But the bottom line was that the name Wanamaker.
Mm-hmm.
So remember I told you my ancestor out of South Carolina was Wanamaker? Oh, I'll show you my tree real quick. Okay. So Kathy and I realized that we're related to our England connection. She has been able to test extensively her line, and I'm related to a bunch of people under her line. But the way it went was, this person here, this is where my brothers come into play from Georgia, and I'm not certain about this name, Lila. I'm so not gonna lie. But I stuck her here for now because this woman right here, Louise Wanamaker, I don't know if you guys have ever seen my photo that I use whenever I do presentations of the woman that is in the background, but Lucretia Wanamaker, this woman right here, she looks exactly like my grandmother's mother. Not her grandmother, her mother. So I put them side by side. Mm-hmm. And this was the eeriest, this was the eeriest thing to me. And then the next picture was to some extent how she stands. It's beautifully eerie that someone had this photo in their tree. And I don't know how I tripped up under them, but they are living in Orangeburg, South Carolina. Mm-hmm. And I said, okay, I don't know nothing about an Orangeburg, but I know for a fact this lady looks like my grandmother. So this is a wrap that she's my ancestor. I just got to figure out how. Hold on. I see a Louisa right here, but she's 1871. That can't be her. And so this is how we let the DNA help us to understand how to force these relationships. There it is right there. Praise God. I'm smart. So I added it to her page. So this is the record. I got to figure out what it is on their website. But so this is the story, y'all, right here. So I went to the loose leaf and I said, la, 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 why does Bullock County have slave records? Let me just take a shot in the dark. And I pulled up this record and I looked at the record. I don't know these people. And lo and behold, I see the name William C. Wanamaker in Bullock County, Alabama, which was Pike at the time. William C. died, but Mary A. Rogers was her first husband. She then married Mr. Rogers. So she became a Rogers. The man here, that's what I was trying to type, George A., but the record is under GEO-A.
Mm-hmm.
He died 1862. Probate stayed open to 1872. And I was sitting here trying to figure out, how am I going to find Wanamakers in Alabama? How am I going to find my ancestor that's going to link me to that beautiful photo that I know is my grandmother? They literally are Wanamakers. And I never would have thought to think that there was any Wanamakers at Alabama. Never had saw that name. And I've transcribed Pike County. But what happened was, by the time whatever record got recorded, she had married Rogers. So the story was, when I dissected and I had built a tree now for these Wanamakers. I literally had built a tree. And so she married him in South Carolina. They went to Georgia. I think he had some prominent position. Georgia, when Georgia opened up land, they took them slaves from wherever they took them slaves from. And so they took them from South Carolina, brought them to Georgia. Her husband died maybe a couple of years later. She remarried Mr. Rogers, and he went to Pike. And so I'm pretty sure I have Rogers in my database, not knowing what I'm looking for, because I never ever saw the name Wanamaker. But that photo forced me. I said, I don't care how I'm kidding this lady. I'm kidding her. And she going in my tree, and she just was a floating tree until until I could connect the dots, right? And so and that record now has shown me Wanamakers were in Alabama. And so now I'm building the Wanamaker tree for them, the enslavers, and they're floating in this tree because they're going to connect to me some kind of way. They're going to connect to me. I think her husband might have was from Barbados or maybe or somewhere like that. She definitely looks mulatto. And then Kathy, I think I put John Bayless is where Kathy and I connect. I threw Lila here, and I know that up here is Kathy's line somewhere. So no, these are my DNA matches. Tanisha is a literal match. So this is what I do, everybody, when I have matches. I put them in my notes on the right, because I need to visually see who I'm related to people, or what am I still vetting.
Yeah, that's good.
So I put their tree. I put notes about, is it Jed match? Is it ancestral connection? Do I verify? Yeah. So this is a person that I still need to vet, because she has Wanamaker somewhere in this tree right here. And so now I can reach out to her, and maybe we can have a conversation about the Wanamakers, because now I could tell her they were in Alabama. You know what I mean? So see how she has Wanamaker all over a tree. This is gonna be my tomorrow project. So all I want to say is I thank you for coming, because Alabama was my originated home, right? This is the research that I started from. But now my tree is morphing into me researching our ancestors. And what I'm praying you get out of tonight is not being so stuck on only looking for a name. You could have a few names to that one name. And understanding all of the cousins that we're related to, we have to let the DNA direct us to where to look. And if we do that, then we will find our breakthroughs. Thank you, guys. I hope this was helpful as it pertained to the Siler and all of those names you could possibly be remotely related to, and the why. And but
a lot, girl. It's a lot. Good job.
Good job.
Thank you, guys.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Yes.
All right, guys. See, it's a little early. Hey. So.
All right. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
BioTea.com. Our concentrate teas are special blends with a variety of herbs and spices that you just add to water. Once you mix and stir, you can enjoy them hot or cold. Find out how we make water better. Biot.com. Drink your way to better health.